City of Stevens Point Special Finance Committee meeting, recorded November 14, 2022.
You just logged in here. We can run you remotely as the chair, and then we'll get you covered that way. Perfect timing.
Absolutely. Are we ready to begin, or would it be better to
you're all
have...
ready to call the meeting to order, take roll. It's the very, very start. Sorry.
No, that's fine. You're just very loud right there, so.
Okay.
So you're on.
Okie dokie. I was just confused, though. That's all. Thank you. It is 7:57, and I apologize to everyone for I had a work obligation and missed the earlier part of the meeting. We'll call the meeting of the Finance Committee to order. It is the 14th of November, and the first item on our agenda is the roll call.
Morrow.
Aye.
Short.
Here.
Johnson.
I am here now.
Dalton. Here. Plassance.
Here. Good job.
We have a quorum. Is that correct?
Yes.
Groovy, thank you. And now, discussion and possible action, consideration of the 2023 budget. There was a memo, which I found interesting. I would entertain a motion to take action on this item.
I move approval of the 2023 operating budget with the changes that have been made.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion with the committee as it relates to the budget or the memo that was attached?
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
Can you see us, like if we raise our hand?
Sort of, kind of. You're a little fuzzy, but you know.
Well, so then we'll just keep piping up, I guess.
Yeah, please.
So, there are some things that you say every so often, repeating yourself because it's actually important to do so. And once again, to express my thanks to the work that the Comptroller Treasurer's Office and Carrie do, together with the department heads. I say it over and over again, we really rely on them, given how many items are in the budget, how complex it is. But there's extra thanks, I think, this month because of the work that's been done on the compensation. I'm sure it wasn't easy, but it's terrific that you found a way to get to 3%. We expressed how important it was to us, and once again, thanks for finding a way to do it.
Absolutely. I echo that. Other committee members, questions, comments?
No.
Okay. Anyone from the audience?
None.
None. The only question that I have, and it's probably a little bit farther down the road because this seems rather new. I work in a pay-for-performance setting, and I saw money set aside for high performers, which is great. Putting that into action is always a little bit more challenging than just saying that. Do we know what sort of metric we're going to be using, how we will differentiate high performers from, average performers, and then what that... So I guess I'm assuming that this will kind of get fleshed out in the new year. Is that probably correct?
No, it's the existing plans that are already in place and have been for years, but unfunded.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed would be no. Abstentions? Motion carries. And now I need to get back to my other screen. Next item on our agenda is approval of modifications to Edgewater Relocation Assistance Program. I'd entertain a motion to move this to the floor for discussion.
I'll move approval of the modifications.
I second.
Excellent. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Anyone from the audience? All right. Well, this is kind of a good problem to have. So it's nice to see this. Everybody in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed would be no. Abstentions? Motion carries. Next item. 2023 to 2025 agreement with Park Ridge for fire services. Talking about this for a while, I would entertain a motion to move it to the floor for discussion.
I'll move approval of the agreement.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion?
Yes, if I may.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chair. To the chief, of course, please, thanks. While the chief makes his way over. So there's just one way in which I want to make sure that Stephen's point is made whole. I'm sure you've taken care of it, but would appreciate an explanation, and that is that the village's contribution is a fair portion, not just of whatever calls and services there might be, but of our core costs in what is just entailed in keeping a department running. And just my sense of fairness is that needs to be there as well, and I would appreciate your explanation of how that's being handled.
Correct. And actually, your voice is definitely being heard, along with many others that have those same concerns. So what we were able to do is we were able to work with the comptroller's office and the Village of Park Ridge and looked at different ways that how we would come up with those numbers. And we looked at a per capita, we looked at an equalized value, and then we looked at the blended formula as well. And what we realized working with the comptroller's office is that blended formula was as close as we could get to what the city taxpayers are paying for the same services within the Village of Park Ridge. So we went with the blended formula, and we also looked at the requirements that that the village was going to have on us. Besides the fire suppression services, we would also be responsible for inspecting their 32 commercial buildings in their area. So we also mapped out what that would cost in order to, the cost of service for that. And then we, after that, and we came up with a formula, we looked at basically adding 10% to that for a cost of doing business. And that cost of doing business is the inflation that we're seeing on the fire side right now. Within our annual operating costs and the increases, we looked at that and said, wherever we're at, we need to add that 10%.
Because the term of the agreement is going to be extended.
Correct. And then also you'll see in the agreement, and that's why I actually left this, there was some discussion with the comptroller's office and a few others of how we were going to bring this forward. We wanted to make sure that you saw the difference between the short-term contract that we put in place from July 1st to December 31st and what the long-term contract looks like and the changes that we made out through May of 2025. We also put in there a 3% increase in 24. We put a 3% increase in there for 25, and that these payments would be made in quarterly increments back to the city, and then this would go into the fire department's operational budget. with this also, in the short-term contract, we did not have the ability to add our 2% dues to this last short-term contract because they had already used them. And we agreed moving forward that that wouldn't be a deal breaker in the short-term contract. Long-term, though, we would secure those funds as well. Those 2% funds that would come to the fire department, the Stevens Point Fire Department as well. So as we went through this, that's where we came up with the financial dollars and how we came up with the plan. I can tell you that there was a special meeting held on October 12th at the Village of Park Ridge. They had many questions for us. Basically, there were 3 different options on the table for them to reinstate their fire department and do all the updates that were expected, to basically go with us or to go with the Town of Hall Fire Department. And they did actually vote and select the Stevens Point's contract moving forward after the first of the year.
Thanks for all the work, and to pick up on one of the points that you made along the way, I assume that the quarterly payment is to avoid a situation where basically we're financing because of a delay. The quarterly payment, has regular.
Correct, and that way we would see that moving into the operational budget, and moving forward, we were able to track that. We worked with legal on that as well, along with the comptroller's office, and felt that was the best way to handle it.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
This is regarding finance in general, but if the Stevens Point Fire Department would happen to have to go to Plover to respond because there's a big fire there, do we make any money off of that?
No, we do not. So right now, we have a Metro agreement in place. A Metro agreement initially was with the City of Stevens Point, Whiting Fire Department, and Plover Fire Department. When Whiting and Plover merged, Hall Fire Department got into the Metro agreement at that time. What it is, though, is it's automatic aid. And so with that automatic aid, we form a partnership with the Village of Plover Fire Department and the Town of Hall Fire Department. And we go there and respond to the Village of Plover and to the Town of Hall with 1 apparatus, 4 personnel, and a chief officer. But in return, they also send apparatuses into the city to respond on that automatic aid as well. So on those calls in Plover and Hall, we send 1 apparatus with 4 and a chief officer. But when the City of Stevens Point has a fire, the Town of Hall sends an engine with 4 and a chief, and the Village of Plover sends a truck and an engine, 4 on each, and a chief officer. So when we roll into a working fire within the City of Stevens Point, we have 3 engines and 2 truck companies fully staffed. And that is also then after that, we work with Mavis, and we are Division 110 within Portage County, and that's a mutual aid box alarm system that basically we work with all the fire departments in Portage County together jointly. So as we have to elevate alarms like we did last fall for the high-rise fire at 1300 Briggs Court and needed assistance from 13 different organizations, we get that from them, and in return we do that for them as well. It's a partnership.
Thank you.
All right, good question. Any other questions from the committee?
No.
All right, thank you, Chief. Any questions from the audience? Excellent. We have a motion and a second on the floor, a couple of good questions and a great explanation. All those in favor of the approving the agreement, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed would be no. Abstentions? Motion carries. Item 5, Idle Sites Redevelopment Grant Contract between the City of Stevens Point and the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. I would entertain a motion to bring it to the floor for discussion.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right. Are there any questions related to this item? I'm assuming they would go to Director Kronowski.
No.
Any questions from the audience? Very well. We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed would be no. Abstentions? Motion carries. That is approved. Item 6, second amendment between the City of Stevens Point City of Stevens Point, the Redevelopment Authority, and the Opera House LLC. I would entertain a motion to bring it to the floor for approval or for action.
Morrow, so moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Thanks, Chair. So, any issue related to that property, I'm certainly mindful of how tied up the whole issue was for how long, years and years and years, and so that makes me, certainly somewhat patient. The only thing that I would want to confirm, and I'm sure it's true, is that is a sense of good faith, right? That the clear intention is there to follow through. That there are, that there's a desire to complete, and that there's the need for extension. So please.
Yes, yeah, I would generally agree that there's been good faith effort made to continue working on this project. As mentioned in the memo, there's a lot of challenges that come with redeveloping 100-year-old property. Probably one of the biggest ones that Wildcard and Opera House are facing is, of course, supply chain, which continues to be an issue in the construction world. But also, when you have a large building that is now connected to the annex building, the former Bookworld property, there are a lot of different building codes and architectural needs that come into play, and just getting the right person who understands the historical context of the building code is able to walk them through the steps of getting the state approval process took them quite a bit of time as well. I do think there's been good faith effort made by Opera House, and that's why my recommendation is approval. And I said this at Redevelopment Authority the other day, I don't think we want this property back. So we're going to continue to work, hopefully, with these folks as much as reasonably possible.
Thank you, Director. I concur. We don't want it back. So any questions, any other questions from the committee?
No.
Anyone from the audience? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed would be no. Abstentions? Motion carries. Item 7, acquisition of property located at 5595 Regent Street, parcel ID 0203201111. Would entertain a motion to bring it to the floor.
Morrow, so moved. This is going to be in my area.
I'll second.
All right, thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. Questions, comments?
I was looking through the offer to purchase form and really was wondering about the groundwater situation. Has this been tested? Is there any soil contamination here? You didn't really seem to address anything there as far as who would be responsible and if tests are done before the purchase or...
Yep, great question. Director, I'm assuming you would
Maybe
have some
city
answers
water.
there?
Yeah, that's a very good question. As part of the offer to purchase, we did not include any type of well testing for the specific property. A good rule of thumb is that the properties that are east of Brilowski Road are more subject to nitrate contamination within those subdivisions because of their adjacency to existing farm fields. Properties that are typically west of Brilowski don't typically have the same nitrate concerns as those on the east side. Now, the long-term plan, of course, is to run utilities along Regent Street and hook this specific property into city utilities when the time would be appropriate.
Does that answer your question?
So we're actually could buy into problems if it does test negative in the future.
Correct. Hypothetically, that could definitely happen. This property was sold about a year ago to the current owners, and I believe that they had some testing done at that time, and it would be appropriate for staff to ask for results from that testing.
Thank you, yeah, okay.
Great.
I also have a
Alder Morrow?
comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, the whole plan for this is that they will be hooked up on, there will not be any wells. This will be hooked up to city water, sewer, and so on. And that's part of it. That's part of the reason why it would come into this city, so that it would not be on wells, because the water is not good. And this is part of the plan that we have to increase this city and to give better. I mean, and this is also why the lots are the size that they are, because to have a well, you would usually have to have a 2-acre lot,
Correct.
and there are no 2-acre lots here. So when this is eventually developed, all the storm water and all the like the drinking water would also be included in the site.
Sprinkler systems would be included, or would they be allowed to have wells?
These are better questions for Director Lemke. Thankfully, he just walked in.
So in that area, the very specific effort that led to not approving a subdivision with septics was to avoid the septics. There are plenty of people out there that have wells that use them. They do have high nitrates in most of them. But to avoid the septics from providing another source of contamination for our municipal wells. We do have a lot of land north of there that was purchased for wellhead protection, and we do have wells that dot the west bank of the Plover River. And so there's a little crossover there, east to west. They kind of play around with each other. So it is in our wellhead protection area. So the subdivision being on sewer and water is mostly the benefit of the sewer to not have all those septics. They will be on city water and sewer both, so you don't have to worry about that from a consumption perspective. Wells are allowed for irrigation in the city. They still have to be permitted, and actually they follow a process that wells outside the city don't. Routine testing, back T testing to make sure they're safe, and well inspections, actual physical inspections. So ironically, if you're just outside the city and you have one that you're using for your home, you don't have to do that. Inside the city you do, and you're not using it for domestic purposes. So it's a little odd, but that's how it works.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My
Thank you.
question, it's for Director Konoski. My question relates to lot size. Any reader of Strongtown's blog and Chuck Marone's work considers themselves part of the Strongtowns movement has to ask and confirm that in the development, the property value will sustain not just the initial construction of utilities, but replacement 30, 40, 50, whatever it is years from now.
Correct. Yeah, so that was one thing. I don't know if this body remembers, but at one point we had done kind of a subdivision analysis, a financial analysis of the subdivision, looking at what the expected property tax revenue would be, what the long-term liabilities for the city would be. I think it was on a 99-year kind of outlook, expecting that around that 100-year mark that you replace the underground utilities, and that every, I think, 40 or 50 years we were expecting to replace the roads or do some type of maintenance. And we also included a lineal foot calculation for just regular maintenance and snow plowing. And based on that financial projection, staff believed at the time that this subdivision would, in turn, quote-unquote, pay for itself. The expected lot sizes that are on the proposed city parcel, if and when that would become developed, would be consistent with actually homes in your neighborhood, a higher density single family. And then the items that are on the Anderson parcel are a little less dense. I think there's 39 total lots that are proposed there. But you do have, I mean, you'll have north of 60, possibly 70 additional lots in this general area as part of the development.
Thank you.
Good question.
Yep. Other questions?
And I'll just make one clarifying one, if you don't mind, Madam Chair.
Absolutely.
My second mistake of the night.
Oh, no.
Under the financial impact, it should not say fund balance. These acquisitions are being paid for out of borrowing, so.
Oh, okay.
And believe it or not, I do have a third strike for closed sessions, so I'm really on a roll this week.
Performance incentives.
Performance incentives,
It was
yeah.
divine.
Yeah. Heck. It happens when there's a lot to do, right? All right. Other questions from the committee before I ask the audience? Anyone from the audience with questions? I'm taking that as a no. All right, we have a motion on the floor and a second. We had some really good questions and good discussion, clarifications and corrections on the memo. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed would be no. Abstentions? Motion carries. And item 8, acquisition of a can't even say it. Acquisition of a portion of the property located at 324 Brilowski Road, parcel ID 0202-40826-13.02. Entertain a motion to move it to the floor for discussion.
Tomorrow, so moved.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All right, I don't see any from the committee, any from the audience. Perfect. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed would be no. Abstentions? Motion carries. All right, item 9, approval of the claims paid. We had two little groupings of them, as we typically do. I would entertain a motion to bring it to the floor.
I'll move approval.
I second.
We have motion and a second, thank you. Are there any questions about the claims that, basically the bills that have already been paid? Again, for a new member, this is a process that is actually in statute. So they pay the bills and they come to us and say, is this okay? So, any questions?
No.
Any questions from the audience? Excellent. All those in favor of paying the claims or approving the claims paid, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed would be no. Abstentions? Motion carries. And now item 10 is closed session. I will read it off, but if I recall correctly, I will not be able to stay on for the closed session. I will read the notation.
Chair Johnson, I also believe item C has been removed.
Okay.
I was informed of before.
Okay, thank you. So there's just 2 items in the closed session. Thank you. Appreciate that. Item 10, adjourn into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.85(1)(e) for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons requires a closed session on the following: a request from Merge Urban Development for an amendment to the development agreement for the property at 1009 Portage, 1017 3rd, 1020 Center Point Drive, and 10060 Center Point Drive. That's item A. Item B, negotiating the terms for a potential development agreement for the property at 1200 Main Street and the Redevelopment Authority owned parking lot. I would entertain a motion.
Aldermaro, so moved.
We
Second.
have a motion,
Second.
and we have a second. And typically, we do a roll call, so I would ask for
What's
that.
required. Yeah.
Morrow,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Shore,
Aye.
Dalton,
Aye.
Toussaint.
Excellent. It is 8:26. We will move into closed session, and I will turn the chair over to Alder Dalton so that, because I'll be blipped out here in a little bit, so.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.